Jesus gave all of us the mandate: go into all the world and make disciples. That great commission is for His church and requires us to give our all for Jesus. We must give all our hearts, loving people very different from us. We must give all our strength, pressing forward into the darkest corners of the world, lifting up Jesus so all can see. Hindus and Buddhists, secularists and Muslims. We must give all our minds, teaching and training men and women to lead the churches they will plant. We give our all so that all the world will have the opportunity to respond to God's offer of salvation. And all the world will have a chance to respond if all of us do our part. If all churches take up the mantle to reach this world, if all people will say yes to going and giving and praying, if all people, young and old, men and women, from every ethnicity and every economic class, embrace the call to mission. This year, we give our all for Jesus, for His glory and His fame. It's all for Jesus.
Hey, welcome to Radiant. My name is Andrew. I'm the lead pastor. We're so glad you could join us today from wherever you're watching or listening from. If it's your first time joining us, hey, go to radiantchurchsc.com and click I'm new. If you fill out that short form online for us as a way of saying thanks, we're going to donate $5 to one of the nonprofits that's listed. We're doing things a little bit different this week. In our in-person service, we're hosting a panel of 4 missionaries, having a discussion on what missions is and the difference that missions work makes in our world for eternity. Now, we weren't able to show this panel because some of our missionaries are working in parts of the world which are really dangerous, and we can't have them and their identities online. It would not be good. So in a few minutes, what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce you to a couple missionaries who are serving in some very unique ways in our world. One's very involved with IT and networking and the internet to reach people in what we call hard-to-reach places. More on that here in a moment. The other is serving in Africa, training up pastors and ministry leaders to reach their own nations. Now, before we get to these amazing individuals, I want to share with you very quickly what our heart and vision for missions is at Radiant Church. We strongly believe in the importance of reaching our world for Christ. Much of our focus is local, of course, right? Because we're a local church, and we certainly are involved in local missions, really right here, and those that are also happening stateside. So, for example, we support a local soup kitchen, a crisis pregnancy center, Free International, which frees people from the sex slave and human trafficking industry around our nation. Clemson University, FCA, that is, not just Clemson, but the FCA, Clemson University. Another university ministry called Chi Alpha. We support them as well. In fact, we have some Chi Alpha staffers who attend Radiant, and numerous Chi Alpha and FCA students attend Radiant Church as well. But on a global scale, we've come up with really 2 priorities. One, we want to make sure that we help our own people. So we want to help South Carolinians get to the mission field. If you're from South Carolina, we want to help you get where God is leading you to go, regardless of where in the world that might be. I think it's really important we take care of our own folks, don't you? But 2, we want to prioritize what we call hard-to-reach places. Now, that's the technical term for this, by the way, is the 1040 window, but that's the places that are, like North Africa and the Middle East and Southeast Asia. We want to partner with missionaries heading those places where very few people want to go because the need is so great. These regions contain many of the least reached people on the planet, and they're also home to some of the most dangerous places to be a missionary. So our global missions focus is on those 2 priorities, getting people from South Carolina to the mission field and also focusing on the hard-to-reach places. We support individual missionaries and also mission organizations and initiatives like Speed the Light, which provides vehicles and AV equipment and computers and all kinds of equipment needs that missionaries would have to reach folks overseas. Our first missions guest you're going to hear from here in a moment is Fred Kovacs. Now, Fred operates in the U.S., but believe me, man, his work impacts people all around the world, especially in the hard-to-reach places. Now, he's heavily involved in IT and networking in the church network that we're a part of called the Assemblies of God. Now, I don't think I need to tell you how important that role of networking IT is in our world today, right? Because one of the things we learned through COVID, especially if you didn't figure it out before, is how important important networking and coding and IT are to keep everything running. And so Fred makes sure that missionaries are able to reach people in these important ways all across the globe. The next missionary you're going to hear from is Donna Rudd. Now, Donna spent years in Cambodia before moving to South Africa in the 90s in the aftermath of the apartheid era. And she's now heading back to Africa to work with Africa's Hope, which trains native pastors and ministry leaders who will plant churches and start ministries, reaching their own people within their own nations. Now, I'm going to let you hear from Fred and Donna, and then I'm going to come back one more time when they're done and fill you in on some next steps.
Greetings in the name of our Lord. My name is Fred Kovach, and it's great to be with you, even if it's by video. That's our family, and together we are your missionaries serving as the Chief Engineer of IT at Global University. It is a unique position in that I am the only FCC licensed broadcast engineer within Assemblies of God World Missions. The opportunities for ministry that come about are sometimes mind-boggling, but they always come back to souls who need to know Jesus and grow in Him. Whether it is putting a Christian TV station on the air in Africa, repairing a missionary television studio in Madrid, or writing code for an online Bible school in restricted countries, the focus is pointing souls to Jesus. This past term, our ministry has mostly focused towards using online Bible schools to reach difficult places. In particular, India and Sri Lanka, both countries where the political climate has turned hostile towards the gospel. Yet, in working with online Bible schools, we have been able to reach into these nations and train pastors to serve and disciple their people into the image of Christ. On a missions trip in 2016 to India and Sri Lanka, I traveled with the team into the mountains of Sri Lanka. I was pulling footage of the beautiful landscape when our host told me that there were 40 pastors in that area using tablets with the online Bible school that we were there to help establish. You can only imagine the incredible joy that I felt as I realized our online technology was taking the gospel into the most remote parts of this island nation steeped in Buddhism. Your faithful prayer support has helped us to establish or support over 30 online Bible schools. Like Sri Lanka, most of these online schools are in difficult places. One of these schools has grown to over 35,000 students, and graduating students have established over 14,000 house churches in just 7 years. One of these graduates, a young woman working as a farm worker in Asia, tearfully told how she wanted to take what she learned and reach her neighbors. I was told that in less than 6 months' time, she will have 15 people in her own house church, and then it'll add on to the total of over 14,000 house churches. The prayers of God's people help missionaries do their work. It's really true. We can't make stories like this happen. It only happens through the power of the Holy Spirit. Please pray for the students of our online Bible schools as they take what they've learned and use them to help the people around them. Also, pray for our translators, some of whom face imprisonment and worse, just for translating our materials to help reach people for Jesus. And please pray with us as we seek to raise our support for our next 4-year term. Our new budget is the most challenging yet. Part of this is to make up for churches that simply can't give anymore, and the rest is a budget increase to reflect expanded ministry opportunities. We still have to raise over $650 per month and also need to raise over $9,000 in cash. Some of that is our travel fund, which allows us to come alongside of other ministries who need our assistance. We also have project funds for the online Bible schools that I've mentioned, as well as globalreach.org, which is now in 36 different languages, including 2 Asian minority languages, which are on private servers for security reasons. Please pray to the Lord of the harvest that He would provide these needs. We know that He has it out there in spite of COVID-19. We just need to discover how He will fund our budgets. Your prayers open doors that are closed spiritually and provide the Spirit's strength when ministry is challenging. Please join us in prayer for these projects and other opportunities that God gives us.
My name is Donna Rudd, and I'm preparing to serve with Africa's Hope. I want to tell you where this story began. I had received a newsletter from a missionary educator who had just taught a class overseas. His students were from all over the world. His newsletter was printed on one side of a large page that could be unfolded and mounted on the wall. On it were small face shots of his individual students, with a short bio for each photo. The visual message was stunning. Some of these students had been at Tiananmen Square during those fateful historic days in 1989. All of them came from various parts of the world. In that one visual, I could see the influence that biblical education has for reaching the lost. Each one of these students had the potential of reaching souls for Christ in places their professor could not go. Before that day, I had a heart for missions, but the Lord used that visual and other later events to specifically direct my heart and my steps toward biblical education in a missions context. Since then, the Lord opened doors for me to serve and teach in the country of South Africa. Now, He is opening the door for me to serve the broader continent through Africa's Hope. Africa's Hope is an umbrella ministry with multiple initiatives aimed at training and developing leaders in the African context. These leaders will go on to carry the message of Christ to their countries, their continent, and even into the rest of the world. Most of these leaders have no other opportunity for a quality ministry or leadership education. But through Africa's Hope, they can receive excellent biblical and ministry training that will prepare them for planting new churches or developing existing ones. My involvement with Africa's Hope will include assisting with quality curriculum development that is specialized for the African context and culture. I will also be involved in teaching on the continent. I'm looking forward with great anticipation to see what the Lord will do on the continent of Africa in the coming years as we serve to raise up new pastors and other church leaders. Will you pray with me, and will you consider supporting my work with Africa's Hope? I know you share our heart's desire that more Africans will come to find their ultimate hope in Jesus Christ. Thank you.
I'm thankful for men like Fred, aren't you? And for women like Donna, who are willing to follow and obey God's leading in their lives. And we want to do all we can to help them to continue reaching people for Christ and to train up and raise up leaders who will reach the nations. And so here's what you can do. Here's some next steps for you. First, you can pray. And I think we downplay the power of prayer way too much. Prayer is so vitally important. It's not some afterthought. It's something, not something we just say or do to be nice. It's something that's powerful. There's power in prayer. And so God responds to our prayers. He listens to them. He moves within them. And I'm telling you, man, that your prayers are vitally important. So please, please, please pray for these guys. Now, number two, you can do something which might stretch you a little bit here. It does take money to get people to these places and carry out the mission God's calling them to do. And so we're asking, both in our in-person service and to you who are watching online or through the podcast, to give above and beyond today. Pray about what the Lord might lead you to do, and then I want you to give whatever that amount is. Don't worry if it's big, if it's something you think would be too small. There's no such thing as big or small in God's economy. God will use it all. And here's the thing, when lives are changed for eternity, it's priceless, right? So you can give online. Go to radiantchurchsc.com, or if you prefer, you can mail your gift to us here at our church address. You can find the address on our website as well. Your giving makes all of this possible. So thank you for being obedient to God's leading in your life. It's our hope to take on new missionaries and missions works each and every year going forward here at Radiant Church. We'll host a missions weekend every fall. If you missed out this year, don't worry. Be on the lookout next year when we announce the date for our missions weekend, next fall. We hope you'll be able to make, that next one that we'll have here. Now, we're kicking off a brand new teaching series next week. It's called Forgotten Voices. It's a bird's eye view of some guys who are known as the minor prophets. Now, these guys were really tough hombres here, man. Like they brought powerful messages to the nations of Israel and Judah, messages no one really wanted to hear, but they needed to hear. And I can promise you, these series of teachings will likely be some of the most challenging but beneficial teachings you'll hear all year long. If you can, join us in person at 10 a.m. each Sunday this month of October, or catch us online or on the podcast. Have an amazing rest of the day wherever you're watching or listening from, and we'll see you again next time.
Jesus Christ, who calls the dead to life,